Outside the display window of a posh patisserie, a woman wept while her two children gazed hungrily at the treats. A widowed businessman watched her from afar, unaware that this encounter would change their lives forever. Rain lashed down furiously on the city streets, but nothing was as devastating as the tears rolling down Chloe's face, her hands trembling against the cold glass of the display. Inside the patisserie, sweet hope shimmered. Freshly baked lamingtons, vanilla slices dusted with icing sugar, golden sausage rolls, and savory meat pies gave off a heavenly aroma. A pink neon sign cruelly announced freshly baked Aussie delights. Outside, on the wet pavement, a 2-year-old woman and her two children represented everything the world preferred not to see. "Mummy, why are you crying?" Mia's voice, barely 7 years old, cut through the air like broken glass. Chloe couldn't answer. Words choked in her throat along with shame, hunger, and the crushing weight of having reached her limit. In her arms, little Leo, just 2 years old, whimpered softly, his pale face buried against his mother's shoulder. For 3 days, the children had barely eaten more than stale bread and water. 3 days since Chloe had spent her last coins on milk for Leo. "Mummy, I'm so hungry," Mia whispered, clutching her stomach with both hands. "It hurts here." Those words shattered what was left of Chloe's heart. She sank to her knees on the wet pavement, no longer caring about dignity, no longer caring who saw her. She closed her eyes tightly and silently cried out with all the desperation of her soul. "If there is anything greater than me in this universe, if there is any force that listens to mothers who have nothing left, help me, not for me, for them. Forgive me, my love, forgive me," she sobbed, hugging Mia with one arm while holding Leo with the other. "Mummy, I can't give you anything now." The raindrops mingled with her tears, making it impossible to distinguish where one ended and the other began. From inside a black car parked across the street, a man observed the scene, his brow furrowed. Julian Davies, 45, had seen a lot in his life as a successful entrepreneur. He had built an empire from scratch. He had lost his wife and daughter in a tragic accident years ago. He had known the deepest pain and loneliness, but something in that image struck him like a punch to the gut. He looked away. It wasn't his problem. He had learned not to get involved, to protect what little heart he had left after losing everything. The world was full of suffering. He couldn't save it all. He couldn't save anyone. "Mr. Davies, shall I continue?" his chauffeur, Mark, asked, looking at him through the rearview mirror. Julian swallowed. "Yes, let's go," he replied, his voice attempting to sound firm. The car began to move slowly. Julian looked in the side mirror. The woman was still kneeling, sobbing, while the little girl tenderly stroked her hair with infinite gentleness, trying to comfort her with her fragile little hands. For a second, he saw his late wife, Eleanor, in that unknown woman on that last morning. He saw his daughter, Isabel, at that same innocent age. Something broke inside him. "Stop," he ordered suddenly, his voice hoarse. "Stop the car now." Mark braked sharply, surprised. "Sir." Julian was already opening the door. Inside the patisserie, elegant customers enjoyed their gourmet coffees and superficial conversations, completely oblivious to the suffering unfolding just meters away. A woman in a fur coat pointed towards the window with disgust. "How disgraceful. These people are always looking for pity in front of decent businesses," she said contemptuously to her companion. "They should call security." Her friend nodded, adjusting her pearls. "It's a known tactic. She's probably a professional scammer. Those children probably aren't even hers." The words cut through the glass like invisible daggers. Chloe heard them. Every syllable stabbed her soul like burning thorns. At that moment, a woman sweeping the entrance of her shop next door dropped her broom in indignation. "Shut your mouth!" she yelled towards the patisserie window. "That woman is no scammer. I know her. She used to work as a seamstress in Mr. Henderson's workshop until her good-for-nothing husband abandoned her." Another neighbor, Janine, who sold flowers on the corner, quickly approached with an umbrella. "Oh, love, get up off the ground," she said in a maternal voice, shielding them from the rain. "Don't let those nasty women see you like this." But Chloe couldn't move. The weight of defeat was too great. Julian Davies crossed the street with firm steps, his immaculate suit brutally contrasting with the misery of the scene. A taxi driver waiting on the corner rolled down his window. "Isn't that Mr. Davies, the owner of Davies Industries?" "Yes." "What's he doing?" another shopkeeper murmured, watching with curiosity. Julian stopped in front of Chloe and, to everyone's surprise, knelt on the wet pavement, not caring about ruining his expensive trousers. People began to murmur. Some took out their mobile phones. Chloe looked up, confused and scared. "I didn't come to dismiss you, to humiliate you further, madame," Julian said in a soft but firm voice. "Let me help you." Chloe blinked, unable to process what was happening. Tears kept falling. I'm not a scammer," she stammered, her voice cracking. "My children are truly hungry. I don't want to deceive anyone. I'm not asking for charity, sir. I'm a mother who doesn't give up." Her words came out with a dignity that broke something in Julian's chest. "I know," he replied. And there was something in his eyes that indicated he truly did know. "That's why I'm offering you my hand." He stood up and extended his hand towards her. Chloe hesitated, looking at his hand as if it were an impossible apparition. Was this real, or had hunger finally made her hallucinate? She closed her eyes for a second and silently prayed. "If this is a sign, if this is your answer, thank you." Finally, she took Julian's hand. He helped her up carefully, as if holding something infinitely fragile and precious. "Mark," Julian called to his chauffeur, who had stepped out of the car. "Take this family to the Harbor Lights Bistro. Let them order anything they want. Everything." "But sir," Chloe tried to protest, overwhelmed. "I can't accept. It's not charity," Julian interrupted firmly. "It's humanity, and we'll talk afterwards." Mia looked at the man with enormous eyes, filled with a hope that had been extinguishing for days. "Can we really eat, sir?" Julian knelt to her height, and for a fleeting moment saw in those innocent eyes the reflection of his own lost daughter. The familiar pain shot through his chest like lightning, but also something else, something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. "Really, little one, anything you want," he said, his voice cracking slightly. Inside the patisserie, the customers watched open-mouthed. The woman in the fur coat paled, murmuring something inaudible to her companion. Other people on the street had stopped, silent witnesses, to something that seemed straight out of a story. The woman sweeping the shop wiped tears from the back of her hand. "Now that's a real man," a man said loudly. "A man with a heart." The taxi driver nodded from his window. "There are still miracles in this city." Janine, the flower seller, whispered a silent prayer. "The universe heard your prayers, love," she murmured to Chloe. "It always listens to mothers." As Mark gently guided Chloe and the children towards the car, Julian remained on the pavement for a moment longer. He didn't know why he had done this. He didn't know what invisible force had compelled him to stop the car, to get out, to intervene. He, who had become distant and cold after losing his family. He, who had sworn never to get emotionally involved with anyone again. But something in those desperate eyes of a mother had reminded him that he was still human, that he could still choose to be better. What Julian didn't know was that this decision, made in a second of spontaneous compassion, would unleash a series of events that would transform both their lives in ways neither could imagine. And what neither of them knew was that from across the street, hidden beneath the awning of a closed shop, a man watched everything with narrowed eyes. Dave Johnson, the husband who had abandoned Chloe and the children months ago, clenched his fists in fury as he saw his family getting into the luxury car. Something dark glinted in his eyes, something that promised this story was only just beginning. Because sometimes destiny doesn't knock on the door. Sometimes it just finds you crying in the rain and, when you least expect it, extends a hand that will change everything forever. But it also awakens the demons you thought you had left behind. The interior of the Harbor Lights Bistro seemed like a parallel universe. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like captured stars. The tables sported immaculate white tablecloths, and the aroma of freshly prepared food floated in the air like a heavenly promise. For Chloe, crossing that door was like entering a place where people like her weren't allowed to exist. Her hands trembled as she held Leo against her chest. The little one had stopped crying, but his tiny face was still buried in his mother's shoulder, as if he feared it was all a cruel dream from which they would awaken at any moment. Mia walked, clinging to Chloe's leg, her enormous eyes absorbing every detail of the place with a mix of awe and fear. "This way, madam," Mark said, with a genuine kindness that brutally contrasted with the treatment Chloe had received in recent weeks. The chauffeur guided them to a secluded table, near a window overlooking a small inner garden where vibrant crimson bougainvillea grew. Chloe sat down slowly as if the movement might break the spell. Mia climbed onto the chair next to her, and Chloe finally placed Leo on her lap. A waiter approached with elegant menus. The man, about 50 years old, looked them up and down, noting their worn clothes, their rain-soaked hair, the deep dark circles under their eyes from sleepless nights. "Mr. Davies has given instructions for you to order whatever you wish," the waiter said, his tone polite but cold. Chloe took the menu with trembling hands. The prices hit her like silent slaps. A single dish cost more than she earned in a week when she still had a job. The letters began to blur as tears threatened to return. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. You have to be strong for them, always for them. Mummy, Mia whispered, touching her arm. Can we order roast chicken with all the trimmings? Mia's voice broke as she said those words. Like Grandma used to make before she went to heaven. Chloe's heart shattered. Her mother had passed away the year before, shortly before Dave abandoned them. Mia barely remembered her, but she remembered the home-cooked roast chicken her grandmother prepared with so much love. She remembered the taste of home when a home still existed. Yes, my love, Chloe replied with a trembling voice. Order Grandma's roast. When the waiter returned, Mia timidly ordered the roast chicken. For Leo, Chloe ordered a mild chicken and vegetable soup, something his delicate stomach could digest after so many days of eating little and poorly. And for you, madam? The waiter asked, with the same polite coolness. Nothing, thank you. I'm not hungry, Chloe lied, though her stomach rumbled with a ferocity that caused her physical pain. She couldn't take advantage more than necessary. It was humiliation enough to accept food for her children. She could resist one more day. She had resisted before. She would resist again. Mummy, but you have to eat too, Mia protested with that ancient wisdom that children who have grown up too fast sometimes possess. I'll eat later, darling. Now I want to see you eat. The waiter left without saying anything more, but Chloe noticed him exchanging a meaningful glance with another employee near the bar. She knew that silent language. She had seen it too many times in recent weeks. Look at these people. They came to take advantage. Shame enveloped her like a cold, wet blanket. She lowered her gaze to her hands, cracked by hard work, dirty from days without being able to wash properly. Hands that had once sewn beautiful dresses, that had created beauty with needle and thread. Now they were just the hands of a broken woman. A couple at a nearby table began to whisper, looking discreetly. The woman, jeweled and perfectly made up, wrinkled her nose with visible contempt. It's incredible they allow this here, she murmured, but loud enough. This used to be a decent place. Her companion, a man in an expensive suit, nodded. Mister? Davies is probably just having one of those charity fits the rich get. Tomorrow he'll have forgotten all about it. Chloe clenched her fists under the table. Each word was a nail. She wanted to get up. She wanted to scream that she too had been someone who had worked honestly every day of her life until everything collapsed like a house of cards. She wanted to explain that it wasn't her fault, that she had fought, that she was still fighting, but the words wouldn't come out. She just closed her eyes and prayed silently, with all the strength of her shattered soul. Give me strength. Don't let me break down here in front of my children. Give me dignity, even if I have nothing else. Mummy, don't listen to them, Mia whispered, squeezing her hand with her tiny fingers. They're bad people. You're good. Grandma always said you were the best in the world. Tears finally escaped. Chloe wiped them away quickly, trying to smile for her daughter. You are my strength, my darling, you and your little brother. Finally, the food arrived. When the waiter placed the steaming plate of roast chicken in front of Mia, the child froze completely. Her eyes immediately filled with tears as she looked at the chicken bathed in gravy, the roasted vegetables beside it, the fresh bread rolls still warm. Mummy, her voice completely broke. It smells like Grandma's house. Eat, my love, eat, Chloe encouraged her, her heart in 1,000 pieces. Mia took the fork with both trembling hands and brought the first bite to her mouth. The moment the taste touched her tongue, tears began to stream down her cheeks uncontrollably. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of such profound relief that it hurt her soul. They were tears of memory, of lost love, of found hope. It tastes the same, Mummy, she sobbed. It tastes exactly like Grandma's. Chloe began to feed Leo small spoonfuls of soup, watching the baby devour each bite with a desperation no 2-year-old should ever know. Each spoonful she gave her son was a stab in her own empty stomach, but it didn't matter. It never mattered when it came to them. She would give her last breath to see them fed. Mummy, please, have some, Mia insisted suddenly, offering a piece of chicken with her fork. Please, it hurts to see you like this. Those words broke something fundamental in Chloe. A 7-year-old girl shouldn't worry about her mother that way. A 7-year-old girl should be thinking about dolls and games, not adult suffering, not survival. My love, no, please, Mummy, Mia insisted, her eyes full of tears. If you don't eat, I won't eat anymore either." Chloe looked at her daughter and saw a determination that shouldn't exist in someone so small. With trembling hands, she accepted the piece of chicken Mia offered. She chewed it slowly as tears fell uncontrollably. It tasted of love. It tasted of sacrifice. It tasted of guilt. At that precise moment, the restaurant door opened. Julian Davies entered with firm steps. He had gone to his office briefly to cancel an important meeting, but he hadn't been able to concentrate for a second. The image of that broken woman on the pavement, crying out to the sky in the rain, haunted him like a ghost that refused to leave him in peace. His eyes searched and found the table where Chloe and the children were sitting. What he saw hit him like a direct punch to the heart. The girl was crying as she ate, desperately offering food to her mother. The mother was feeding the baby with trembling hands, tears falling onto the table. The baby was eating with a soul-breaking urgency. And in the midst of all that was a dignity so profound, so unbreakable, that Julian felt he couldn't breathe. For a second he saw Chloe. He saw Eleanor, his deceased wife, feeding Isabel on that last morning before the accident that took their lives. He saw maternal love in its purest and most devastating form. He saw what he had lost and would never recover. And he knew with absolute certainty that helping this family was not just charity, it was his opportunity for redemption. He approached the table with measured steps. Several heads turned in the restaurant. The city's most successful businessman, walking directly towards the woman in rags. "Is everything all right?" he asked softly. Chloe looked up sharply, quickly wiping away her tears. "Yes, Mr. Davies, thank you. Thank you so much for all this." Her voice trembled. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you. I don't know what I did to deserve this blessing. You owe me nothing," Julian replied firmly. He sat in the chair opposite her, an action that made several diners in the restaurant audibly turn their heads in surprise. Murmurs began to spread like ripples in water. "Tell me," Julian said softly, "how did you come to this?" Chloe hesitated. Shame constricted her throat like an invisible hand. But something in that man's eyes, something that recognized pain because he himself had inhabited it, made her speak. "My husband abandoned us several months ago," she began, her voice breaking. "He left without saying anything. One morning I woke up and he was gone. He took all our savings, every dollar we had saved for years." She paused, breathing with difficulty. "I worked as a seamstress in a workshop. I was good at my job, very good. But when he left, I couldn't keep paying for childcare. I lost my job. Then we lost the apartment. I've knocked on every door looking for employment. Everyone!" But her voice broke completely, unable to continue. "But no one hires a woman with 2 small children and no family support," Julian completed, with a comprehension that seemed to come from a deep and dark place. Chloe nodded, tears falling freely. "Now, where have you been sleeping?" Julian asked, though a part of him feared the answer. "In a temporary shelter," Chloe whispered, shame burning in her cheeks. "But we can only stay 2 more weeks. After that, I don't know what we'll do. I don't know where we'll go." The silence that followed was devastating. Mia moved closer to her mother, as if she could protect her from the cruel world with her small body. Leo clung to Chloe's neck, feeling the tension even if he didn't understand the words. Julian watched that brave child trying to be a shield for her mother, and something inside him broke definitively. He remembered Isabel, who would have been almost the same age. He remembered how she too had been brave until the end. No, he couldn't keep thinking about that. Not now. "Madam," Julian began, choosing his words with extreme care. "Chloe." "My name is Chloe Davis," she said softly, with a dignity that persisted despite everything. "Chloe," he repeated, feeling the weight of that name. "I want to make you a proposal, a real job, not charity." Chloe looked at him, her eyes filled with fear and hope dangerously intertwined. "I need someone to look after my house, someone to cook, to clean, to keep things in order. My house is big, too big for a man alone. I've had housekeepers before, but none stay more than a few weeks. They say the house is too lonely, that it makes them sad to be there." He paused, looking directly into her eyes. "I can offer you a fair salary, your own room for you and the children in the house, 3 meals a day, and stability. It's not charity, it's a job with real responsibilities. Very real." Chloe blinked, unable to process what she was hearing. Her mind was spinning. Was it real? Or had hunger and desperation finally made her lose her mind? I don't understand," she stammered. "Why would you do this for a stranger? Why me?" She continued, her voice growing more distressed. Why would someone like you help someone like me? Her voice broke, and with it came out all the accumulated fear. Rich men never do anything without expecting something in return. Never. I've learned that. The world taught me. The silence that followed was so heavy it seemed to have physical substance. Julian was not offended. Instead, he nodded slowly, as if he perfectly understood where that fear came from. "You're right to be suspicious," he said finally, his voice laden with an ancient pain. "The world has taught you not to believe in kindness, and that is one of the most terrible crimes that can be committed against a human soul." He took a deep breath before continuing. "But I'm going to tell you something very few people know. Years ago, when I lost my wife and daughter in an accident, I also lost my business, almost everything. The medical debts, the funeral and legal expenses, the depression that sank me, I lost almost everything." His eyes got lost in a painful memory. "A man helped me, a man who didn't know me, who owed me nothing. He gave me work in his small engineering workshop when no one else would hire me. He gave me purpose when I felt I had reached rock bottom. And he made me promise something." He looked directly at Chloe. "He made me promise that if I ever had the opportunity to do the same for someone else, I would. Unconditionally, without expectations, without asking for anything in return." A solitary tear rolled down his cheek, something Julian hadn't allowed in years. "This is that opportunity. You are that person." Chloe looked at him. She really looked at him and saw the truth shining in his eyes. She saw the pain of a man who had lost everything and had found a way to keep living through kindness. "Do you accept?" Julian asked softly. Chloe closed her eyes. In her mind, she prayed with all the strength she had left. "If this is real, if this is your answer to my prayers, give me a sign, just one sign." When she opened her eyes, she saw Mia smiling. A small, fragile, but genuine smile. The first real smile in weeks. That was her sign. "I accept," Chloe whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "I accept, and thank you. Thank you for seeing that I'm still human, that I'm still worth something." Julian extended his hand across the table. "Welcome to your new home, Chloe." Chloe took his hand with her own, still trembling, and in that silent handshake, two broken souls made an unspoken pact. A pact of second chances, of hope against all hope, of faith that life could still surprise them. Neither of them knew that this simple agreement, born of desperation and compassion, would lead them down paths that would test everything they thought they knew about forgiveness, redemption, and the transformative power of human kindness. And neither of them saw the figure watching them from the restaurant window. Dave Johnson, hidden in the shadows of the street, clenched his fists in fury as he watched his wife and children being rescued by another man. Something dark glinted in his eyes, something that promised this story was far, far from over. Because sometimes, when hope finally arrives, it also awakens the demons you thought you had buried. The black car drove along increasingly wide streets, leaving behind the bustling city center. Chloe looked out the window, her heart racing, watching as modest buildings gave way to imposing mansions, surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens. Each house seemed grander than the last, each gate more intimidating. Mia had fallen asleep against her mother's shoulder, exhausted by the day's emotions, and with her stomach finally full. Leo also slept soundly in Chloe's arms, his little face finally at peace. She held them both as if they were her only treasure in the world, because they were. "We're almost there, madam," Mark announced from the driver's seat, his kind voice breaking the silence. Chloe swallowed. A part of her still expected to wake up in the shelter, discovering that it had all been a cruel dream. She closed her eyes briefly and whispered silently, "If this is real, give me strength to live up to it. Don't let me let down this man who extended a hand to us." The car turned and passed through a wrought iron gate that opened automatically. Chloe held her breath. The mansion that appeared before her eyes was like something out of a magazine. 3 floors of elegant architecture, ivory walls, enormous windows with dark frames, and a front garden with water features that sparkled under the evening lights. Pink bougainvillea climbed the entrance columns, adding a splash of color to the immaculate perfection. "My goodness," Chloe whispered, feeling her heart shrink. I don't belong in a place like this." "Mr. Davies believes you do," Mark replied with a genuine smile as he stopped the car in front of the main entrance. Julian was already there waiting for them. He had arrived minutes earlier in his own vehicle. He opened the car door personally and helped Chloe out carefully, aware that she was carrying both sleeping children. "Welcome," he said softly. "This is your home now." The word home resonated in Chloe's chest like a bell. It had been so long since she had a real home, so long living in uncertainty, in survival, day by day. "Let me show you your room," Julian continued. The children must rest. They went through the main door, and Chloe entered a world she never imagined stepping into. The foyer was enormous, with marble floors that reflected the light of a crystal chandelier. A wide staircase ascended to the upper floors with polished dark wood banisters. Elegant paintings hung on the walls, and the air smelled faintly of lavender and cleanliness. But there was something else in that air. Silence. A silence so profound and heavy that it seemed to have a life of its own. It wasn't the peaceful silence of a quiet home. It was the silence of a mausoleum, of a place where life had been torn out by the roots and had never returned. Chloe felt an inexplicable shiver run down her spine. Julian guided her upstairs, his steps echoing in the oppressive silence. They passed a long corridor with closed doors on both sides. Chloe noticed that all the doors were closed, all of them, as if guarding secrets no one should discover. This will be your room, Julian announced, opening a door at the end of the corridor. The room was spacious and beautiful, a large bed with immaculate white sheets, a small cot by the window for Leo, another single bed for Mia, a dark wood wardrobe, and a wide window overlooking the back garden. Everything was impeccably clean, but there was something strange about that perfection. It seemed untouched, as if no one had lived there for a long time. The bathroom is here, Julian indicated, pointing to a side door. There are clean towels, toiletries, everything you need. Chloe carefully put Leo in the cot and Mia in the single bed. The children didn't even stir, lost in the deep sleep of those who finally feel safe. Mr. Davies, Chloe began, her voice trembling. Julian, he interrupted her gently. You can call me Julian. Julian, she repeated, the name feeling strange on her tongue. I don't know how to thank you. I don't have enough words to express what this means to me. For them, Julian looked towards the sleeping children, and something painful crossed his face. You don't need to thank me. Just look after them, love them, protect them. That's enough payment for me. There was something in his voice, a sadness so profound that Chloe felt she could touch it. Do you have children, Mr. Julian? She asked carefully, though something inside her already knew the answer. The silence that followed was devastating. I had a daughter, Julian finally replied, his voice almost inaudible. Isabel would have been almost Mia's age now. She would have. Those two words contained a universe of pain. I'm so sorry, Chloe whispered, feeling tears burn in her eyes. I didn't mean to. Don't worry, Julian interrupted her, composing his expression. Rest tonight. Tomorrow I'll show you the rest of the house and explain your responsibilities. For now, just rest. You haven't truly rested in a long time, have you? Chloe nodded, unable to speak. Emotion choked her. Julian walked towards the door but stopped at the threshold. Chloe, he said without turning. The closed doors in this hallway, please. Don't open them. Not yet. And before she could reply, he left, closing the door softly behind him. Chloe remained motionless, looking at the closed door. The shiver returned, more intense this time. What was behind those doors? What secrets did this house, so beautiful and so terribly sad, hold? She went to the window and looked out at the back garden. The full moon illuminated an enormous space with trees, flowers, and something else. In a corner of the garden, half hidden by the shadow of a weeping willow, there was a small structure. It looked like a child's playhouse painted white and pastel pink, but it was abandoned. Vines partially covered it, and the paint was peeling in several places. A rusty swing swayed slightly in the night wind, producing a ghostly creak that Chloe could hear even through the glass. A shiver ran through her entire body. This house held pain, a lot of pain. She felt it in every corner, in every shadow, in every silence. She turned away from the window and went to her sleeping children. She stroked Mia's hair with infinite tenderness and gently kissed Leo's forehead. We're safe, she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was trying to convince them or herself. Finally, we're safe. She closed her eyes and prayed silently, with all the faith that had sustained her in the darkest moments. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this roof, for this food, for this hope. Help me to be worthy of this blessing. And if there is pain in this house, help me bring light. Help me heal what is broken, as this man is healing my broken life. She didn't know why she had prayed that last part. The words had simply come from the depths of her soul. Meanwhile, in his study on the first floor, Julian poured himself a glass of whiskey with hands that trembled slightly. He hadn't had a drink in months, but tonight he needed something to numb the pain that roared in his chest. He looked at the framed photograph on his desk, Eleanor and Isabel smiling on the beach, the sun shining on their happy faces. They had taken that photo 2 days before the accident that took their lives. "What am I doing, Eleanor?" he whispered to the photograph, his voice broken. "What am I doing bringing a family into this house? Am I betraying your memory? Or am I finally doing what you wanted me to do? Keep living." Silence was his only answer. Julian drank the whiskey in one gulp, feeling it burn his throat. Physical pain was easier to bear than emotional. His phone suddenly rang, breaking the silence. He looked at the screen. It was an unknown number. He hesitated a moment before answering. "Hello?" he replied, his voice tired. "So now you rescue women off the street, eh, Davies?" A male voice slurred with contempt. Julian immediately tensed. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows that woman you just brought into your house very well," the voice replied in a threatening tone. "Someone who has rights over her and those children." Julian's heart began to beat faster. "Dave Johnson!" A bitter laugh echoed on the other end of the line. "I see poor Chloe already told you her version of the story. She probably told you I'm a monster, didn't she? That I abandoned them. For no reason. What do you want?" Julian asked, his voice cold. "I want you to know that's my family," Dave spat with venom. "And no one, absolutely no one, is going to take them from me. You can play the hero all you want, but in the end, she's going to have to come back to me." "That's her decision, not yours," Julian replied firmly. "And if you truly abandon them, as she says, you have no right over them." "Oh no?" Dave let out another cruel laugh. "We'll see what the lawyers say. We'll see what the law says about a rich man taking another man's wife into his home. We'll see what people think when I tell them the great Julian Davies is using his money to seduce vulnerable women." "You're crazy," Julian said, feeling rage burn in his chest. "No, Davies, I'm desperate. And a desperate man is much more dangerous than a crazy one." Dave's voice became even darker. "Enjoy your good deed while you can, because this is just beginning." The call cut off. Julian stood staring at the phone, his heart beating violently. The whiskey glass fell from his hand and shattered on the floor. What had he done? Had he endangered that family by bringing them here? Or had he given them the only chance to escape a man who was clearly dangerous? He looked again at the photograph of Eleanor and Isabel. "Help me protect them," he whispered into the empty air. "How could I not protect you?" The silence in the house seemed to grow even heavier, denser, as if absorbing every word, every pain, every secret. And somewhere, between the shadows of that beautiful mansion, past and present began to intertwine in ways no one could predict. Because sometimes, when hope finally arrives, it also awakens the demons that were sleeping. And these demons didn't intend to stay asleep again. The dawn light streamed through the window when Chloe woke with a start. For a moment of panic, she didn't know where she was. The clean sheets, the soft mattress, the silence. Everything was so different from the shelter where they slept huddled with other desperate families. Then she remembered. The rain. The businessman kneeling on the pavement. The restaurant. This house. She quickly got up and checked on her children. Mia slept soundly, hugging her pillow. Leo breathed peacefully in the cot, his little face finally a healthy color after days of hunger. Seeing them so at peace, without the weight of suffering marking their faces, brought tears to Chloe's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered towards the ceiling, towards the sky, towards any higher power that had heard her pleas. "Thank you for this opportunity." She washed her face in the bathroom, surprised to see new hygiene products, fluffy towels, everything arranged as if someone had prepared the room especially for her. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. Deep, dark circles, tangled hair, pale skin from malnutrition, but in her eyes, there was something new, hope. She went downstairs carefully, trying not to make any noise. The house was silent, but it was a different kind of stillness than the night before. The sunlight streaming through the windows made everything seem less oppressive, less laden with secrets. She found the kitchen by following the smell of freshly brewed coffee. It was enormous, with modern appliances that gleamed under the light, a central marble island, and dark wood cabinets that reached the ceiling. Everything impeccable, everything perfect, everything absolutely devoid of life. Julian was sitting at a small table by the window with a cup of coffee in his hands, staring out at the garden with an absent expression. He was dressed casually, in jeans and a long-sleeved shirt, but the tension in his shoulders was visible even from a distance. "Good morning," Chloe said softly, not wanting to startle him. Julian turned his head, and Chloe noticed the deep dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept all night. "Good morning, Chloe," he replied, trying to smile. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I've slept in months," she admitted honestly. "Thank you for everything, for every single thing. An awkward silence settled between them. Chloe noticed the broken glass that someone had swept up, but its sparkle was still visible near the rubbish bin. She noticed the tension on Julian's face. She noticed that something had happened during the night. "Did something happen?" she asked carefully. Julian hesitated. A part of him wanted to protect her, not burden her with more worries, but another part knew she deserved to know the truth. "Your husband called last night," he said finally. Chloe froze. Color drained from her face. "Dave," she whispered, and in that single word was pure terror. "How? How did he get your number?" "I don't know, but he was furious. He said he's coming for you and the children." Julian paused, watching Chloe begin to tremble. "He said he has rights over you." "No." Chloe's voice came out as a choked sob. "No, he can't find us. He can't take them away." She sank into a chair, her legs unable to support her. Her hands trembled violently. He's not a good man, Julian. He never was. I was foolish. So foolish." Tears began to fall. "I thought he would change. I thought that when the children were born, he would transform into the father they deserved." Her voice broke completely, but it only got worse. He would yell, break things, humiliate us, come home drunk, and… She stopped, unable to continue. Julian felt rage burn in his chest. "Did he hurt you?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. Chloe didn't respond. Her silence was answer enough. "The day he left, I thought it was a curse." She continued, her voice broken. "I thought it was the worst thing that could happen to us. But now I realize it was a blessing. It freed us from him. And if he comes back, if he tries to take my children…" She looked up at Julian, and in her eyes was a fierce determination. "I would rather lose everything than let him harm them." "It won't come to that," Julian said firmly. "I will protect you. I will protect all of you." "Why?" Chloe asked suddenly. "Why are you doing this for us? You just met us. You could get into trouble because of us. Dave is capable of anything. Why risk your peace for strangers?" Julian was silent for a long moment. His eyes drifted to the window, to the garden, to the abandoned playhouse in the distance. "Because years ago, when I lost my family, I also lost myself," he began, his voice hoarse. "Eleanor and Isabel died in a car accident. A reckless driver ran a red light. In 1 second, everything I loved disappeared." He paused, breathing with difficulty. "I sank into despair. I lost my company, my house, everything. I ended up living on the streets for 6 months. 6 months where I wanted to die every day." Chloe looked at him with enormous eyes, unable to process that this successful man had been where she was now. "One day, an old man who had a small workshop gave me work. He didn't know me. He had no reason to trust me, but he gave me a chance. He told me something I never forgot." Julian looked directly at Chloe. "He told me, life took something precious from you. Now you have 2 options. Die with that pain, or transform it into something that brings light to others." A tear rolled down his cheek. "That man saved my life, literally. And when he died 2 years later, he left me his workshop in his will. That work on soap was the seed of my current company. Everything I have now exists because someone decided to extend a hand to me when I was at my darkest bottom." He wiped the tear with the back of his hand. "When I saw you yesterday crying in the rain with your children, I didn't see a stranger. I saw someone who needed the same thing I once needed. An opportunity, an extended hand, a reason to keep believing." The silence that followed was sacred. Chloe cried uncontrollably, but they were tears of understanding, of a deep connection between 2 souls who had visited hell and had survived. "That man who helped you," Chloe said with a trembling voice. "What was his name?" "Arthur," Julian replied with a sad smile. "He always said that angels don't have wings. They have hands that work and hearts that feel." Chloe closed her eyes, feeling that something greater than herself was weaving the threads of this story. "Then I will be your Arthur," she said suddenly, opening her eyes with determination. "I won't just clean your house, Julian. I will bring life to this place. I will cook food that smells of home. I will open the windows to let in the sun. And if you allow me, I will help heal your heart as you are healing mine." Julian looked at her in surprise. No one had spoken to him like that in years. No one had seen through his success and his money to find the broken man living inside. "I don't know if my heart can heal," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "Mine didn't either," Chloe replied. "But here I am, breathing, believing, hoping, and all because someone decided to see me as something more than rubbish on the street." At that moment, Small footsteps were heard on the stairs. Mia appeared at the kitchen entrance, rubbing her sleepy eyes, her hair disheveled, forming a cloud around her little face. "Mummy, is this real?" she asked in a small voice. "Or am I going to wake up and still be hungry?" Chloe quickly got up and ran to her daughter, hugging her tightly. "It's real, my love. It's very real. And you're never going to be hungry again. Never again." Mia began to cry, clinging to her mother. "I had a dream about Grandma," she sobbed. "She told me everything was going to be okay, that the good man was going to look after us. Is it true, Mummy? Is it true that everything is going to be okay?" Chloe looked at Julian over her daughter's head. Their eyes met, and at that moment, they both made a silent pact, a pact of mutual protection, of shared healing, of hope against all hope. "Yes, my darling," Chloe replied with a firm voice. "Everything is going to be okay. I promise." Julian got up and approached them. "Do you know how to make pancakes, Mia?" he asked, with a genuine smile he hadn't shown in years. The girl shook her head, wiping away her tears. "Then today you'll learn. And after breakfast, I'll show you the garden. There are swings that need someone to play on them." For the first time in years, the kitchen of that house was filled with voices, with laughter, with life. But outside, in a van parked at the end of the street, Dave Johnson watched the mansion with eyes injected with rage. In his hand, he held a half-empty bottle. His jaw was clenched with fury. "Enjoy your happy little home while you can, Chloe," he muttered with venom. "Because I'm going to take everything from you, just like you took my pride, like you made me look weak." He took another swig from the bottle. "And when I'm done with you, that meddling millionaire is going to wish he'd never crossed my path." He started the engine and drove away slowly, but not to give up, to plan. Because the most dangerous demons are not those who attack immediately. They are those who wait in the shadows, watching, learning where it hurts the most. And Dave Johnson knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. The storm was just beginning, and no one was prepared for its fury. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks brought a transformation no one would have imagined. Julian Davies' mansion, which for years had been a silent mausoleum of pain and buried memories, began to awaken. The windows opened every morning, letting in the sun and the birdsong. The aroma of home-cooked meals, freshly baked scones, savory peas, and lamingtons filled the hallways that once only smelled of emptiness and solitude. Mia ran through the garden, chasing butterflies, her crystalline laughter breaking the oppressive silence that had reigned for so long. Leo took his first wobbly steps in the living room, with Julian following him closely, hands outstretched to catch him, a genuine smile illuminating his face for the first time in years. And Chloe had kept her promise. She didn't just clean the house, she filled it with life. She sang while cooking songs her mother had taught her. She placed fresh flowers in every room, and slowly, with infinite patience and deep respect, began to ask Julian about the closed doors. One afternoon, as they prepared dinner together, something that had become their favorite routine, Chloe finally brought up the topic they had both avoided. "Julian," she said softly, cutting vegetables for the broth. "The doors on the second floor, when was the last time you opened them?" Julian stopped chopping onions. His hands paused in midair. "I haven't opened Isabel's room since the day she left," he admitted, his voice broken. "I haven't been able to. Every time I try to approach, I feel that if I open that door, I'll have to accept that she's truly gone." Chloe put down the knife and approached him, placing her hand over Julian's. "She's no longer in that room," she said tenderly. "She's here." She touched his chest over his heart. "And keeping that door closed doesn't bring her back. It only keeps you a prisoner of grief." Julian closed his eyes, tears escaping despite his efforts to contain them. "I'm scared," he confessed. "Scared of forgetting her. Scared that if I move on, it will be like betraying her." "Moving on doesn't mean forgetting," Chloe replied with wisdom that came from the heart. "It means honoring her memory, by living the life she would want you to live. A life full of love, purpose, and light." That night, after putting the children to bed, Julian and Chloe went upstairs together. They stopped in front of the white door with princess stickers that Isabel had put on years ago. Julian's hand trembled violently on the doorknob. "You don't have to do it alone," Chloe whispered, taking his other hand. Julian took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and turned the doorknob. The room was exactly as Isabel had left it that last morning. The bed unmade because they had left in a hurry, toys scattered on the floor, her drawings taped to the walls, the faint scent of her strawberry shampoo still lingering in the stagnant air. Julian fell to his knees, sobbing with a soul-wrenching intensity. Chloe knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around him, letting him release years of contained pain. "I'm sorry, my princess," Julian cried. "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry I failed you." "You didn't fail her," Chloe said firmly. "You loved her. You protected her every day she was with you. And now she wants you to keep living, to keep loving, to keep being the wonderful father she knew." Julian looked up at Chloe, and at that moment, something fundamental changed between them. It wasn't just gratitude. It wasn't just compassion. It was something deeper, more sacred. It was the connection of two souls who had walked through the valley of death and had decided to choose life. But destiny had one last test prepared for them. 3 days later, as Chloe took the children to the nearby park, a car pulled up in front of them. Dave got out, his appearance unkempt and his eyes injected with something dark and dangerous. "Hello, Chloe," he said, his voice trying to sound sweet but coming out poisoned. "Aren't you going to introduce me to my children?" Chloe instinctively pushed Mia behind her and clutched Leo to her chest. "Stay away from us, Dave. Is that how you treat the father of your children?" he asked with false indignation. "After all I did for you." "All you did?" Chloe's voice trembled, but not with fear, but with righteous anger. "Do you mean the beatings, the humiliations, stealing everything from us, and abandoning us on the street?" Several people in the park began to stop, watching the scene. "You're lying," Dave spat. "You were always a liar. That's why I had to discipline you." "You don't own me," Chloe said, her voice growing firmer. "You never did, and I will never again allow you to hurt my children." "Our children," Dave corrected, advancing towards her. "And I'm taking them, with or without lawyers." He reached out to grab Mia, but at that moment a voice resonated with absolute authority. "You won't touch that child." Julian had arrived, alerted by a call from a neighbor who had recognized Dave's description. He brought with him 2 police officers and his personal lawyer. "Who do you think you are?" Dave yelled, but there was fear in his eyes. "I am now the person who has the restraining orders," Chloe requested. Julian replied with icy calm. "I am the one who has the photographs documenting every abuse, every trace of pain you caused her. I am the one who has the testimonies of neighbors who heard your shouts and your threats." The lawyer stepped forward, extending documents. "And I am the one who will press formal charges if you approach this family again." Dave looked at the documents, then at Chloe, then at Julian. In his eyes was rage, but also something else, the understanding that he had lost. "This isn't over," he threatened weakly. "Yes, it is," Chloe said, and her voice no longer trembled. "It ends now. You no longer have power over me, Dave. I'm no longer afraid because I learned something you will never understand." She took a step closer, looking him directly in the eyes. "I learned that true power doesn't come from causing pain. It comes from choosing kindness when the world gives you reasons to be cruel. It comes from getting up every time you fall. It comes from protecting those you love instead of destroying them." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but they were tears of liberation. "You were my cross for years, but today I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to be free." The officers escorted Dave back to his car. As he drove away, Chloe collapsed into Julian's arms, sobbing with relief, with liberation, with gratitude. "It's over," Julian whispered, holding her tightly. "It's over, Chloe. You're safe. Everyone is safe." Mia ran to them, hugging both their legs. "Did the bad man leave, Mummy?" "Yes, my love," Chloe replied, stroking her daughter's hair. "He's gone forever." Time continued its course, bringing healing with each sunrise. Isabel's room became a beautiful sanctuary of happy memories, instead of a mausoleum of pain. Julian framed her favorite drawings, lovingly organized her toys, and every night, before going to sleep, he would go in to wish his eternal princess good night. Chloe blossomed in ways she never imagined possible. She not only regained her dignity, she multiplied it. She started sewing again, creating beautiful dresses that she sold online, building her own economic independence while remaining in the house that had become her home. Mia started school at an excellent college, making friends, laughing, being the child she always should have been. And every afternoon she would tell Julian about her day, climbing onto his lap and calling him Uncle Julian, with a love that healed wounds no medicine could cure. Leo took his first complete steps in the garden, walking from Chloe's arms directly into Julian's, who caught him with tears of joy rolling down his face. And one afternoon, as they prepared scones and pies together for a special dinner, Julian took Chloe's hand amidst the flour and dough. "Chloe," he said with a trembling voice, "when I saw you that afternoon in the rain, I thought I was saving you, but now I understand that you saved me. Chloe smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "We saved each other," she replied. "That's how grace works. That's how love works. It doesn't come from one place. It flows between people who choose to see the light, even in the deepest darkness." Julian then knelt, pulling a small box from his pocket. "I don't know if it's too soon. I don't know if you're ready. But I do know that I don't want to spend another day without asking you if you would consider me, not just as your employer, not just as your friend, but as your partner, as the father these children deserve, as the man who wants to spend the rest of his life honoring the gift you have given me." Chloe brought her hands to her mouth, sobbing. "Yes," she whispered. "1,000 times yes, because you didn't just give me a roof, Julian. You gave me back the faith that miracles still exist." They kissed as the sun set over the garden, tinting everything golden, while Mia peeked from the door and clapped with joy. And Leo laughed without understanding, but feeling the love that filled every corner of that house reborn. The wedding was small, but perfect. In the same garden where a playhouse once rusted with sad memories, there were now flowers, lights, and laughter. Friends, employees, neighbors who had witnessed the transformation, all celebrated not just a union, but a living testament that love always triumphs. When Julian kissed Chloe under an arch of white roses, with Mia and Leo standing beside them as witnesses to this new beginning, something extraordinary happened. A white butterfly landed on Julian's shoulder for a fleeting moment before flying towards the sky. "Isabel is here," Chloe whispered with tears of joy. "I know," Julian replied, looking up at the sky. "She's giving us her blessing." And in that perfect moment, surrounded by love, by hope, by second chances, both understood the deepest truth of the universe, that coincidences don't exist, that every encounter has purpose, that when we fall to our knees in the rain begging for a miracle, destiny is already preparing the answer. Sometimes, that answer doesn't come as we expect. Sometimes it comes in the form of a stranger who dares to stop, in the form of a hand extended in the middle of the storm, in the form of two broken souls who find in each other's pieces a way to rebuild themselves. Chloe and Julian not only saved each other, they became living proof that true love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about choosing to see the light in someone who has walked through darkness. It's about building a home not with walls, but with faith, with patience, with the certainty that even in the darkest days, the dawn always comes, and when it comes, it brings with it the possibility of starting anew, of loving anew, of believing anew, because in the end, destiny doesn't give us what we ask for. It gives us exactly what we need to learn. And Chloe and Julian learned the most beautiful lesson of all, that true wealth is not measured in gold, but in the hands you hold in the dark, in the tears you gently wipe away, in the hearts you heal with your presence, in the home you build, not with bricks, but with unbreakable love. And that is the only wealth that matters, the only one that remains, the only one that transforms pain into purpose and despair into hope. That is the magic of second chances, and everyone, absolutely everyone, deserves one.